Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm doing my 5 OP champs for patch 13.22, so if you enjoy my content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. There are a plethora of changes this patch, however mostly I'm going to focus on the champs which aren't being too heavily adjusted but are already very strong at the moment. With nerfs and buffs towards other champions, these champs will only be amplified, so let's get into it. To move, Camille is in a really strong spot at the moment. She is decent in elite play, she's decent in standard play, she does kind of struggle lower down because she's a very high skill champion. She has lots of combos which you need to execute pretty precisely. She has mechanics within her kit such as the E, and being able to use that effectively can be the difference between a good Camille and a bad Camille. Knowing when to take the right rune set can also be quite important. Of course, Grasp is going to be your main go-to rune set. However, Conks and PTA have got variations which are good in certain matchups, especially if you're playing a bit more aggressive and looking to trade more on just your Q than alone with your passive shield. But for the most part, Grasp, Shield Bash synergize quite well on your passive, really syncs up with your trading pattern and allows you to take trades without much risk. Second Wind, quite nice as just being sustained through harass and poke is really important. Bone Plating, of course, can be a variable which needs to be taken when playing into the likes of Renekton and other all-in champions which are very reliant on heavy burst. Of course, I'm not a huge fan of Second Wind because it can be quite easy to just proc of someone and then look for all in windows whilst it's down. Second Wind doesn't really have this issue where you can constantly get the healing throughout the duration of this. Other runes you can run are Overgrowth and Unflinching. Unflinching into very heavy CC comps where you do need that additional tenacity. Overgrowth is quite nice though, as it just provides you with some more upfront durability. Also synergizes quite nicely with your passive shield. Alongside this, you'll usually just take Biscuits and Boots. There aren't many other variations here. For minor runes, you can take Double Adaptive, Health, or Armor, Magic Resist, depending on your matchup, and Attack Speed if you prefer being able to last hit more effectively and looking for just a bit more attack speed within your trades. I do prefer Double Adaptive though on Camille, as she has good AD ratios which really support doing this kind of variation. Ignite TP, Flash Ignite, both these can be good in certain matchups. Ignite TP is going to be your go-to though. For build, for the most part, you are going to just take D-Blade and Pot. You can go things like Triforce as your core mythic. Divine Syndra has times where it is a good thing to go, especially into heavy tanks and good health stackers. It can be quite nice to pick up. Yeah, especially if you can't get as much use out of Triforce. Triforce does help with the likes of split pushing and does increase your damage against squishy targets. Lucidities are going to be your go-to boots. They are the best, in my opinion, boots within the game at the moment. They provide a huge amount of haste, and the passive, which gives more uptime on your some of the cooldowns, is really important. Of course, Marks and Steel Caps have times where they can be really good into heavy AD comps and heavy CC comps. Ravenous Hydra is always a good second option. You can also kind of switch it around with the Silver Shojin, which is one of Camille's best items at the moment. Sterix Gauge, also a really strong item, can be slotted in as a fourth slot. Death Stance, also a really strong item for Camille, as it gives her more durability, a bit more damage, and allows her to kind of act more burst heavy, more frontline burst heavy, without the risk of just being one shot. Alongside this, like the likes of more really good into AP assassins and AP mages. You can also run something like a GA in place of the Death Stance if you do need that stasis because you are being heavily bursted. Hullbreaker is also a good option if you're just looking to primarily split push. Overall, Camille, really strong spot at the moment, has lots of good matchups. Do be careful of the likes of Teemo, as that champion can really be, is one of Camille's worst matchups at the moment, but past that, you are in a pretty good spot. Ivan, Flashlight, going to be your go-to here. Futures and Cosmic can be good secondary options to this rune set here. Airy, of course, being some Ivan's main keystone. Nimbus, Transcendence, Water Walking, these don't really alter that much. Font of Life and Revitalize is a really good secondary rune set on Ivan. It's not being taken anywhere near enough, but Futures and Cosmic is definitely a good option. You want the CDR, you want the Adaptive, and then Health, Armor, Magic Resist, depending on respective game. For start, Green Smite is usually better nowadays after the big nerfs towards Blue Smite. However, you can kind of switch depending on preference. I would always recommend that you Dark Seal pick up early on into the game as Ivan, as he has a really easy time picking up assists. Chevaliers is a really good Ivan mythic, better than Moonstone. Moonstone is still purchased more, but Chevaliers is better in more cases. Lucidities, once again, really good on Ivan. Get more shield rotations out, more Qs, more Ws. Redemption, also a really good Ivan item, as you are very much controlling an area, and it can synergize quite well with that. Iron Sensor, Staff of Flowing Water, and Mikhails tend to be the items you round out your build with, but if you are snowballing, then something like Medjais is really good. If you are into heavy AD burst comps, then Zhonya's is very good, and I would not recommend picking up Anti-Heal on Ivan, but into very heavy healing comps where your team is refusing to pick it up, then yes, something like a Chemtech Putrefier can be good there. But Ivan, in a really strong spot at the moment, definitely recommend picking him up. Silas. Now this might surprise you, but I'm going to recommend an aggressive rune set for Silas. This is like a very heavy lane burst combination with the likes of Night Harvester. So Flash Ignite or Flash TP, you can kind of pick depending on the lanes you're into. Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball, Treasure, giving you lots of burst damage and snowball potential. Transcendent Scorch, really good minor rune at the moment. It is very strong in its current state. Transcendence is also really good for Silas, especially if you want to rotate more combos. And then CDR or Adaptive depends. Do you want a bit more damage to last hit more effectively, or do you want a bit more haste to kind of rotate your combos more? And then Adaptive, Health, Armor, Magic Resist on respective matchups. For the most part, you are just going to go D-Ring. D-Shield tends to be less optimal, but into very heavy poke lanes, you can switch around and go something like D-Shield with like second wind overgrowth if you are into very heavy poke lanes. First Strike is a viable rune set, and Conks is also kind of there, but into very heavy durability comps where you can rotate a lot of combos and get it fully stacked up fairly early on. For your core, Night Harvester, really strong Silas item at the moment. I would really heavily incentivize going this item. If you're not going Night Harvester and you have mana problems, then something like a Ludens. The other two options, and Roa and Everfrost, tend to be weaker. Everfrost is for more utility Silas, and for Soda Q, I'd definitely recommend going more this burst heavy Silas. Picking up an early Dark Seal, always good on AP champions. Something like a Sork, Shadow Flame to round out your second two items. You could also can slot in a Cosmic Drive here as your second option if you're looking for a lot of haste, alongside maybe something like Lucids. Rabadons, Zhonya, Void, good way to round out the build. Overall, really strong spot for the moment at Silas. He had that mana buff not too long ago with his base mana going up, and it allows him to now go towards this Night Harvester path, as he no longer is restricted as much by his mana costs. So that is very good for him. Huge burst here. Definitely recommend trying it. Vayne. So Vayne, I've been talking about for a while, is very strong at the moment, especially if you're going something like a very heavy movement speed Vayne. I've seen different iterations of this. Something like Stormrazor, Essence Reaver, Yomu's has been popular. Of course, you run something like Ghost alongside this, and then runs Celerity, Nimbus, and overall she has so much movement speed, makes it very hard to lock down the champion. It can be really good in certain situations where the enemy doesn't have pointing clicks, and your ability to move around them is really important. For the rune set, Lethal Tempo or Fleet, I'd recommend trying Fleet for the most part, though at the moment it is very strong on her. Triumph, Alacrity, or Bloodline. Coup de grace or cut down depending on comp. And then yes, you can run something like Conditioning or Overgrowth, Nimbus or Celerity if you're going a very heavy movement speed build, and then attack speed, adaptive, armor, health, magic resist depending on respective game. For start, you're not going really anything other than D-Blade, and then core, you can go Static or Stormrazor as your first option into something like a Triforce, or you can go down like that Essence Reaver Yomu's path, which I talked about. For the most part, I'm going to be talking about her durable, like her more durable one. So yes, Triforce, you can pick up something like a Shield Bow third slot. It is a very good Vayne item, but there are lots of good options here. You got like the Phantom Dancer, really underrated item at the moment. Wit's End, also a really good item at the moment. Bloodthirster, not seeing it built nearly enough on Vayne at the moment. GA, Bork, both these are relatively good items on Vayne, especially into heavy health stackers and into games where you're being heavily bursted, then GA can be very valuable. Overall, Vayne, definitely one of the best ADCs in the game at the moment. Yeah, definitely recommend trying her. Saka. So Saka has always been a champion, which I really like. I think the champ is very good, and for the most part, make sure you're running Flash Heal on every enchanter. This tends to be the best in slot. Of course, some games you will need exhaust into the likes of Kennen. Maybe you do have to run Ignite into very heavy healing bot lanes, but for the most part, yeah, Flash Heal is going to be the way to go. And then Airy, Mana Flow, or Nimbus. I'd recommend Mana Flow, Transcendence or Celerity, and I would recommend Transcendence if you're not running Nimbus, but if you're running Nimbus, then Celerity has more value. Something like Gathering Storm is really good as her third slot here. I would not recommend Scorch because you have to be very reliant on your Harass to make a lot of value out of this, and in the end, Gathering Storm just tends to have more value. You are picking Saka for more of a late game healing bot. Font of Life is a really underrated rune. You can run it on Saka as it is on impairing ability, so something like your Q connecting, E connecting, stuff like this. Bone Plating into very heavy burst bot lanes. You can also run Second Wind. Revitalize is always going to be the other one you run here though, as it synergizes really well with your healing. Alongside this, CDR or Adaptive, both of these are really good. And then Adaptive and Health Magic Resist Armor. For start, you are mostly going to go Spell Thieves. I would not recommend taking Relic Shield, but it is an option there, especially if you're not able to get any Q-Poke going. For your core, Moonstone, really strong item Saka. Picking up an early Dark Soul, once again, I really do recommend this. Lucidities, Swifties into heavy slow comps, so that can be quite valuable. Redemption, really good Saka item. And then Staff, Ardent, both these are really good. Of course, you can pick up something like a Warmogs possibly into very heavy burst comps. You can pick up something like a Zonya, Magi if you are very heavily stacking your Dark Soul and very... you are not looking to die this game because losing Magi stacks can be really painful on supports, as it can be quite hard to rack them back up as you're usually not the person getting the kills. Mikhail's also a really strong option if you are looking for that anti-CC item. So yeah, there are 5 champions. I do recommend trying all of these out. They are very good in the current meta. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.